what I'm saying. This is probably one of the most famous gravestones in the Granary burial grounds. This is Paul Revere. Everybody knows who Paul Revere is? What can anybody tell me about Paul Revere? He was a blacksmith, right? He had a lot of different things. He did ride a horse to warn into the countryside of Lexington and Concord. Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Samuel Prescott set out from Boston on the night of actually April 18th, 1775. And the reason why he was heading out to Lexington, or they were heading out to Lexington and Concord, is this is where the militiamen, the rebels, were storing their ammunition out in the Concord, at a house in Concord. Also, Sam Adams and John Hancock were out there on business, and the British had heard this, and they were going to seize the ammunition and also hopefully arrest Adams through a stable hand. A stable hand worked down on Providence Street for one of the British officers. He overheard a British officer telling another British officer, and then he told another stable hand, and it finally got back to Paul Revere, who had suspected this was going to happen anyway. And this is where you get the one up by land, two up by sea. That wasn't for Paul Revere. He knew that the British were going over the Charles and into Cambridge. But it was to let everyone else know. An interesting fact, though, about that night, Paul Revere never actually made it. He was outside of Lexington and Concord when he was actually stopped. And another common misconception about Paul Revere is that he went through the countryside saying, "The British are coming, the British are coming." Well, he didn't say that. That would have been silly because we were all British then. So what he said, him and Samuel Prescott, the who? The regulars. You guys have done your history. But they didn't go running, galloping through the countryside yelling this, because there were a lot of Tories, British loyalists living out there. So what they did is they would pull up to certain safe houses that they knew. They were all designated, and they would knock on the door, say, "The regulars are coming," and then hop back on their horse. And Paul Revere was captured. They took his horse. He actually ended up having to walk back to the recognition that Paul Revere got. And the reason why Paul Revere got all the recognition for really not completing the job, because he was, well, a young gentleman named Henry Wadsworth Longfellow fell in love with Fanny Appleton. Fanny Appleton's mother did not like Longfellow. No matter what he did, he just wasn't good enough. So he found out that to embellish a few things and make it sound like Paul Revere saved the night and whatnot. There was a lot of inaccuracies in the poem, but it became very, very famous. Paul Revere up until that time was relatively obscure in history. But the poem became famous, it made Paul Revere famous, and Mrs. Appleton was so tickled pink and flattered by this poem about her grandfather that she said, "Yes, you can have my daughter's hand in marriage after all." So it was a happy ending for everybody. This is why this is one of the most visited graves sites in here. Now, another story about Paul Revere should say about 20.
The Old North Church. 2 by land, 1 by sea.
McCartney.